activism. Tends to have kind of a radical connotation, doesn't it? Boycotts, protests, burning bras. Unfortunately, it's this radical connotation that can sometimes push support away from a good cause. Students, for example, often want to get involved, but at this stage in life, many don't consider themselves activists. You may not be married to a particular cause. You may not know a whole lot about the Syrian refugee crisis or about endangered species. Because of that, you avoid involvement altogether. You think you won't be accepted amongst the radicals because you're just regular kids. And that's a pretty big gap. Now, in my 10 years of nonprofit activism, I've noticed two prominent methods used to promote a cause. Now, the first and most common method used to promote a cause is called conventional activism. Conventional activism is what we're all used to. It's the use of sad photos and depressing statistics to guilt your audience into getting involved. Our favorite nonprofits use conventional activism all the time because it works. It does. Guilt has a strong emotional appeal, right? But we don't want to hang on to our guilt. You don't want to keep guilt, right? You want to appease it. Make a donation or sign a petition. Do something to feel like you paid your fair share and then get out of there. Now, in 2007, NFL player Michael Vick was busted for dog fighting. His aggressive and traumatized dogs were going to be euthanized until a nonprofit called Best Friends Animal Society decided to step in and rescue 22 of these dogs back in 2008. Now, from a conventional activism standpoint, right, the sad photos and depressing statistics, Best Friends found themselves in a very unique position with a lot of ammunition, right? I mean, you've got these dogs with scars on their faces and heavy metal chains around their necks as they look up at you from behind the bars of their kennels, just hoping for a second chance. You kidding me? You could guilt the pants off your audience with that. You can tug at heartstrings and earn a lot of guilt money. They could call the campaign Vic's Victims. Ooh, I think it's brilliant. I also came up with it. I came up with it to give you an example of what a conventional activist campaign looks like. But Best Friends Animal Society decided to take a different route. They told these dog stories from a positive perspective. They got their followers excited about the dog's progress. They launched a campaign called the Victory Dogs. This is actually one of Michael Vick's former fighting dogs. He changed his name to Handsome Dan, and you are seeing his new family that Best Friends was able to find for him. They used creative and uplifting criteria to get their audience inspired to get involved. Now, this example of creative and uplifting criteria to inspire your audience is what I call positive activism. So, the work of Best Friends and other nonprofits like them inspired me at a young age. My sophomore year of college, my good friend and I decided to create the first organization officially devoted to the concept of positive activism. We called this organization the Heat Establishment. And our goal was to bridge that gap between radicals and regulars. So let's talk about HEAT for a second, shall we? HEAT stands for the Human Environmental Animal Team. We're a creative campaign organization, and we launched with a pretty simple premise: address real-world issues through routes of art, humor, and creativity. Yeah, it can be tough to address these controversial and divisive issues without pointing your finger at the bad guy and demonizing the abusers, but our goal is not to focus on what's wrong with the world. You can turn the news on and see as much of that as you like. Our goal is to shine a light on the people and the companies who are taking steps forward and doing good in the world. We don't want to be that organization that forces you to watch these bloody factory farm videos and appall you. We want to appeal to you. We want to cast a wide net and attract those of you that change the channel when you see conventional activism at work. You know who you are. You see the sad Sarah McLachlan commercial come on. In the arms of an angel, and they've got this like one-eyed kitten who for some reason is soaking wet and shivering, and they're like, please give us money or she'll die. And you come home after like a long day of work and you're sitting on the couch and you're like, geez, and you change the channel, because when you're dealing with what you're dealing with, right? When people are working through a long day and you've got all your problems in life, sometimes you don't want to face another problem. You don't want to be responsible for that kitten's life, or all the homeless kids in the world, or the rainforests being cut down. I get it. I don't think that these organizations that use conventional activism are doing anything wrong. And I don't think those of you who ignore conventional activism are bad people. Some of you are, but most of you are not. I think we, as activists, need to do a better job of earning your attention. We need to get creative. So, with that philosophy in mind, we launched this little club called HEAT. And within only 7 months of being active, we earned the title of Organization of the Year from Texas State University. And that was a big deal for us because we were just a little club. But fast forward to today, 7 years later, we are now one of the largest registered student organizations at Texas State University. We've incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit, and we've successfully expanded to 8 universities across Texas. Thank you. It's not even the best part. We're active at large schools like UT and A&M. We're active at smaller schools like Southwestern University. We even have a high school chapter, and our high school chapter kicks ass. They're not really allowed to talk like that, but I can. And I want to say some more things about our high school chapter because they put together one of the best examples of a positive activism campaign. It's at Cypress Woods High School in Houston, Texas. Yeah. Okay, all right. Now I know who I'm talking to. We had a chapter there that wanted to address a pretty serious issue: the malaria outbreaks in Mozambique, Africa. It's a big deal, right? I mean, people are dying. You can't just tell a joke and be a positive activist and get people involved in something like that. So what is an activist to do? Well, a conventional activist would probably post some photos of children suffering from the disease. Maybe post some death statistics on campus so you know how bad it's getting. But all it takes is one student having a rough day to walk up past a display like that and hit a U-turn. Because why? Because sometimes people don't want to face another problem. Okay, so what brilliant strategy can bridge that gap? Cast a wide net and attract a larger audience. It turns out these students all had a passion for sports. So they wheel in this basketball goal into the courtyard of their high school, and they set it up with some booths and some posters with some statistics on the disease. But the focus of this project was the dunking competition. Show off your skills, donate $1 to dunk. Now, I'm at work, right? This is all happening during a high school lunch period. And I get a text message from a student. I press play. I want you to visualize what this little video they texted me was showing me, right? So there's this basketball hoop in a courtyard where all the students are eating lunch, and there's this crowd of students surrounding it. Too many to count. There's one kid dribbling the ball, like drives through the crowd, jumps over another student, slams the ball so hard that the goal falls over. The crowd goes nuts. There's hats flying in the air. The screams are overwhelming the speakers of my iPhone. And I'm thinking, that's a crap ton of people. What a successful campaign, right? And I thought to myself, it's a big group of kids. Half of them probably don't know what's going on in Mozambique. I couldn't tell you where Mozambique was on the map when I was in high school. But yet they're here at our project, involved in a charity event, not just watching it, not just bystanders, participating, because it doesn't feel like charity. So that's the brilliance of what we do, and it's very simple, but what we did was cast a wide net and just kind of increase our chances of reaching a larger audience, an audience who would have otherwise walked right past our conventional activism display. Now, these students may not stick around, they may not become activists, but we got a chance to have that conversation with them, to earn their involvement. That's more than we would have had if we didn't use positive activism. Now, I don't want to overlook the fact that these students actually did have a successful campaign. They attracted a ton of people. They raised well over $200 in the span of a lunch period. For high schoolers, that's pretty good. And considering that a mosquito net, right, to prevent malaria, cost less than $10 a piece. And these kids were able to create real change in the world, do some real good for people just by incorporating some creativity. This project became known as Nets for Nets, basketball nets, mosquito nets. I don't know if you guys got it. And it is now a reoccurring project throughout our organization. And that's just one example of a heat campaign. We have a few more that I'd like to share with you. We do animal shelter calendars. This one's called Play Toy. We have another called Spots Illustrated. And it's just kind of a fun way to kind of provide an alternative to what we're used to. All right, none of those I'm going to be euthanized tomorrow pictures, right? We're getting the dogs out, we're getting them dressed up, we're getting attention for them through a positive way. This one's a lot of fun. Always pull out. This is, you like that one, huh? This is an environmental awareness campaign to remind folks to unplug appliances when not in use. Save some electricity. Surprisingly popular at our college campuses. And I don't want anyone here to think that this is just a one-off. Like, okay, college students are having fun with activism. We have earned well over 20,000 hours of community service. And that's because our students come back. They enjoy the work we're doing. We've taken positive activism to other parts of the country, Costa Rica, Nicaragua. For the second time in a row this last summer, we took students to an organization called Elephant Nature Park in Thailand, where we worked with rehabilitated elephants rescued from street performances. And thanks to some awesome coordinators, we were able to take our students to Bali, Indonesia for some coral reef restoration this summer. These are our students, dressed up in scuba gear, planting coral polyps in an area that was hit pretty hard by some coral bleaching. This is real. And I could go on all day just kind of talking about our accomplishments, but my goal for being here today is not to brag about the success of my nonprofit. It's to share an idea, positive activism. And I want to summarize by making sure you know that I'm not opposing conventional activism. There's nothing wrong with being so passionate that you get a little radical. You can go boycott, go protest, go burn all the bras you can find. Just know that if that's your only approach, you're going to push some people away. People who could have otherwise been an asset to your cause. Think of it this way. There's a spectrum of issues. People think it's black and white. You're this or you're that. You're a vegan or you're a hunter. You're pro-life or you're pro-choice. But a lot of us kind of fall in the middle of a lot of these issues. Or we're on one side, but could be swayed with a good argument. When you focus on what is and what isn't, and what you are and what you are not, you're missing a big group of people that kind of need you to reach out to them. A lot of us here today consider ourselves environmentalists. But most of us drove cars to get here today. A lot of us here today stand against violence. But that doesn't mean we can't enjoy an occasional Quentin Tarantino film, an episode of Game of Thrones, perhaps. My point is, it's not black and white. When you find that spectrum of issues, you're tempted to draw a line in the sand when you figure out what you stand for. Right? I believe in this. That's great. But your opponent on the other side of that issue is doing the same thing, drawing a line in the sand. And then what do you have? You got two people on opposite sides of a line in a yelling competition, trying to attract more people to your cause and pulling them away from the other cause that you disagree with. No work is getting done in a yelling competition. It's gridlock. It's frustration. Positive activism aims to surpass gridlock and frustration. Right? We want to temporarily erase that line in the sand for the sake of building a bridge to the other side. Have some conversations with people who otherwise would not have listened to you, wouldn't have paid attention to you. You just got to get creative. You got to earn their attention. Positive activism is just another tool you can use to address the same issues. Not instead of conventional activism, in addition to. I challenge all of you to incorporate some creativity into whatever campaigns for whatever causes you're passionate about. Positive activism is an invitation for everyone to use creative and uplifting and unconventional methods to bridge the gaps you may face in life. Thank you.